Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another video. And today I would like to discuss the text of Deuteronomy. Was it actually written by Moses, and what are the opinions of scholars, and what do scholars say about this? The majority of the traditionalists, meaning the Orthodox and people who believe in the complete inerrancy of the Bible, and even so, people who do not necessarily associate themselves, who do not necessarily believe that the Bible is inerrant, meaning the Bible is without error, but they align themselves closely towards more traditionalists. They would believe that the book of Deuteronomy was actually written by Moses. And so I would like to discuss this passage with you, and maybe to try and give you the scholarly opinion. And so I refer you to my translation of the Tanakh. This is the JPS translation of this is the widely attested, widely reputable, go back all the way to the earliest text that we have. And so the JPS, this is obviously, I have the Hebrew and the English version here. I'm still learning Hebrew. I can read a little bit of Hebrew, but I will not attempt to read Hebrew on camera, because I think it will be a disaster. But I would like to refer to counter the belief that Moses actually wrote the book of Deuteronomy. And I'll counter this by presenting evidence from the Tanakh itself. The translation of the Tanakh and the translation of most of the Old Testament is quite the same. They have been translated, especially JPS, very reputable, and so that is why I use their translation. And also, a lot of Jews use the JPS translation. And so, if we go to Deuteronomy 1:1, these are the words that Moses addressed to all Israel on the other side of the Jordan. This first verse is very important, because if you know the history of Moses, Moses actually never crossed the other side. Moses never crossed the other side, because Moses died before he went to the promised land. Because apparently Moses had broken the stick, and it caused water to gush out, and so Yod-Heh-Vod-Heh, or that's the acronym for God or Lord, and so somehow Moses was being punished, and so Moses was denied entry to the promised land. And so when the book of Deuteronomy opens up by saying that these are the words that Moses addressed to all Israel on the other side of the Jordan, this is very clear that this is not the word of Moses. Moses did not write this, because it is in the third person narrative. It is not in the first person narrative, whereby if it is in the first person narrative, the text here would say, these are the words that I address to all Israel. I here meaning Moses. But this instead it reads, these are the words that Moses addressed to all Israel on the other side of the Jordan. And so we know that from this verse, Deuteronomy 1:1, we know that someone was actually writing from the other side of the Jordan. And when someone is on the other side of the Jordan, this person is on the side of the promised land. And then from here, he was telling a story to his people, telling them that these are the words that Moses addressed, to all Israel from the other side of the Jordan. And so he is basically narrating a story to his congregation that these are the words that Moses actually spoke. Whereas if Moses were to say these words himself, he would say that these are the words that I spoke to all Israel, okay, from the other side of the Jordan. But then again, we know that Moses did not actually cross to the other side. Okay, Moses did not go to the promised land. And so the book of Deuteronomy, at least this verse, okay, wasn't actually written by Moses. And I think the evidence is clear enough. And so people would then bring up to verse 6, 1:6, okay? But let's read verse 5 before that. On the other side of the Jordan, in the land of Moab, Moses undertook to expound this teaching. He said, okay? And then verse 6 read, the Lord our God spoke to us at Horeb, saying, you have stayed long enough at this mountain. Okay? This is what Moses spoke. Okay? And so it is not correct, it is incorrect to say that, because if you look at verse 6, see, this is the words that Moses spoke. And so Deuteronomy must have been written by Moses. But if you go a verse before that, verse 5, it clearly indicates that, let me read again. On the other side of the Jordan, in the land of Moab, Moses undertook to expound his teachings. He said, it's in third person narrative. Okay? And verse 6 are the words that he said. And so it is incorrect for some people to argue, to say that verse 6 actually states that, you see, verse 6, this is what Moses actually spoke. So the book of Deuteronomy must have been written by Moses. And that, I guess, is not an honest way to move forward. Because if you just go one verse before, verse 5, okay, the person who wrote Deuteronomy, okay, is telling us that these are the words that Moses, said in the third person narrative. Okay. Another reason why I do not believe and I do not subscribe to the opinion of the majority of the people who align themselves towards the inerrancy of the Bible. Okay. And if we go to verse 1 of chapter 34, okay, chapter 34, not verse 1, verse 5, okay. So Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there, okay, at a mountain. Moses died, okay, again in the third person. The person who wrote Deuteronomy is telling us, okay, that Moses went up to the steeps of Mount Nebo. He went up the mountain, he did his stuff, and then he died at the mountain. Whereas if Moses wrote Deuteronomy, he would be narrating it in the first person instead, and it would have been said, okay, it would have been written that I went up to the steeps of Moab to Mount Nebo, to the summit of Pisgah, and then I died there. Okay, but then again, it wouldn't make sense for someone to have died to be able to write an account of his death. Now, there are a couple of people that I've spoken to, or I've heard, that tried to reconcile this by saying that since Moses was a prophet, he was able to predict his death. Okay. Now, I do not reject prophecy, okay, because I'm a Muslim and I believe in prophecy, but there are a couple of ways to engage this. If we were to engage this from an academic perspective, then we need to bring evidence. But if we are approaching this from a faith perspective, meaning more towards theological, okay, we do need to bring evidence as well. But sometimes you can just close one eyes and say, okay, I admit that prophecy, Moses could have prophesied his own death, so on and so forth, okay? But, okay, I'll give them points for that one. But we must not, but we must also take a look that the book of Deuteronomy was actually written in the third person, okay? It is written in the third person, meaning it is not written in the first person narrative, meaning that someone actually wrote an account about Moses. And if we go forward to the book of to the Gospels in the New Testament, Okay, the New Testament was actually written in a similar narrative style as the book of Deuteronomy, i.e. the third person narrative account, meaning these books were not written by what people came to believe, okay, wrote them. Meaning, in my opinion, and the opinion of Michael Coogan, Christian Hayes, Bart Ehrman, Dale Martin, John Collins, okay, all these Giza Vermesh, all these John Barton, Jaroslav Pelikan, all these scholars do not believe that Moses actually wrote the book of Deuteronomy. And these are the scholars, at least in Western academic institution, these are the scholars that actually says this. And I don't believe when they say this, so I went and looked it up myself, and now I am convinced because the evidence is very clear cut. First things first, in my rejection as to why the book of Deuteronomy, in my opinion, could not have been written by Moses. Okay, I've just presented you, and I'm just going to summarize. First things first, is it was written in the third person narrative. And lastly, secondly, I'll just present 2 points. And lastly, it has an account of Moses' death in it. And so these are the things that could not possibly mean that Moses actually wrote the book of Deuteronomy. Whereas, I can still close a blind eye and accept that Moses might have prophesied his own death. But then again, the account was written in third person narrative. And so, again, I don't believe that the book of Deuteronomy was actually written by Moses based on the evidence that I have just presented. So thank you, and I'll see you on my next video.